Baketivity is baking the world a better place. Get your child to bake and learn with these tasty recipes, fantastic learning experiences, and memories they will treasure, all in one easy as pie baking box. All Baketivity kits include enticing kid-friendly recipes, pre-measured ingredients, step-by-step kid-friendly illustrated instructions, enjoyable learning lessons, or fun educational games. Get your Baketivity subscription today at baketivity.com/homeschool. That's baketivity.com/homeschool.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions, from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey friends, and welcome. This is Felice Gerwitz with an episode of Vintage Homeschool Moms, and today we have a very special episode for you because we are going to be talking about baking with kids, and today we are going to cover 5 top tips that will help you. And so if you like baking, pull up a chair. If you don't like baking, still pull up a chair because we have a very special guest that has a company, and it's called Baketivity, and that's BAKETIVITY.com. You can find today's show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Look for episode 396, Top 5 Tips for Baking with Kids. And today, my special guest is Miriam Schwartz. Welcome, Miriam.
Hi. Happy to be on the phone with you. Yeah, and you're from New York, and so you're calling and sharing with us today about your company. And I'm really always excited to talk to the owner of a company because we really get to hear your heart and what your focus is and so forth. So tell us a little bit about you, your family, and why you started this company. Okay. So I have a family of 4 children, ages 9, 7, 4, and 2. And I guess you could say Baketivity is just a natural outgrowth of who my husband and I are.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is a born entrepreneur. He has all it takes to create a startup business. He has marketing skills and leadership abilities. He's a great networker, and I guess you could say a good problem solver. And he is a fountain of ambition and resilience. He likes that kind of stuff. So that's him. And my passions are, of course, first and foremost, my family. My most ideal time is spent baking with my children. So I guess you could say Baketivity was born out of that.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
And also, while I find that many other business endeavors can take parents away from home and family, Baketivity keeps our family growing stronger and closer because it's just so in sync with who we are. And then,
that's very cool.
Yeah, 100%. And then each creation that we have for Baketivity is always first tested with my children. So I like the feedback they give me and the ideas and so on.
Yeah, I love that because kids are very honest, and you've got some, little ones, and so it's always fun because, we're going to get into some of the top tips, and a lot of times people don't like to bake with little ones because it's going to be so messy, but really that's a thing that they're going to remember, and you're starting them young, and they're really just going to love that. And want to thank you, too, Miriam, for your sponsorship of the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. So first, thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. So, in our back and forth emails, something that popped up was in the conversation was about the fact that you wanted to get the kids away from screen time issues, and that a lot of times we see young kids at restaurants, parents put them in front of their phones or their iPads or whatever that is, and they're watching a movie and, just so glued to that. And with baking, that just takes them away from that. And, I understand that is one of the things that you considered when you did this.
Right, 100%. I mean, I think technology is great, but too much of it has its pitfalls. We all know that as moms of 20 kids, right? And but I think that parents need to have a fun, simple, hand-on activity available, so they should be able to pull their kids away from the screen, and of course the mothers away from the screen. So a Baketivity kit is so easy on the mother, and I think it's so enticing for the child. Mm-hmm. Really, it's a win-win situation, right? The results are tangible and delicious, and never mind the fun and laughter that happens in the kitchen. Right. And I find, as a mom and an educator, that informal learning is so much more effective in the kitchen because the kids are away from the pressures of the classroom and the stresses of the classroom. So their natural talents just come forth so beautifully. Right.
And as homeschoolers, that is something that we love to focus on, too, is learning when they don't even realize that they're learning. And so, friends, you can go to baketivity.com/homeschool to find out more information, but you can order just like one kit if you want to try it, or you can do a 6-month or a year as well. And then also, they're going to have a special discount for us, and that will be on the website. We'll have those links. There is a homeschool link on your website, and we'll have those links available to you in the show notes so that you guys can check it out. I personally love baking. Sometimes as I'm getting older, I have to share that my tried and true recipes, like I have this one chocolate chip recipe, and I triple it because we make cookie dough ahead and put it in the refrigerator, and then, we'll make some cookies, but we like our stuff fresh and good, and not just to have a bunch of cookies that go stale. And my dad owned a bakery in Long Island, New York, so many years ago. And he was a phenomenal cook and could make amazing bread and all of these other sweets and things. And it was an Italian bakery. And it's funny because I don't really like a whole lot of the Italian pastries. I think God saved me. I like some of them, but like even cannolis, those are not a favorite of mine. I like the mini ones, but I don't like the big ones. So, my father kept saying to me, what's wrong with you? And I just said, no, I just like a bite of it or something. But, because some of it was just so rich. And so when I mass produce this stuff, as I get older, sometimes I make mistakes. And so one of the things I loved about your sets is that you get everything you need, and it's pretty much ready to go. So share a little bit about that. Like, why did you decide to send the ingredients instead of, just giving parents a recipe and say, here you go? Because there is a lot of different baking and cooking companies out there, and that's pretty much what they do. You get a card, you get the recipe, you might get a cute little, apron or spoon or something, but then you have to get all the ingredients. So you guys decided on not to do that and to send the ingredients. So explain that.
Right. So what I found in my own kitchen was that when it comes to baking, it can seem a little bit insurmountable with kids around, like getting the ingredients out and making sure you have everything. And then, of course, you can find yourself without some ingredients, and then you have to go out shopping for that. And then baking becomes a hassle. So with Baketivity kits, we wanted to give you a kit that is very easy and hands-on, and it doesn't take too much from the mother's energy. It's just there and ready. So that's basically why we decided to send along the ingredients. I think the fact that it's pre-measured also helps a lot because there's not too many spills going on and not too many mistakes happening with children baking. Everything's just ready, and the results just come out perfect. I mean, as perfect as it can be with children. Yeah.
I'm glad you prefaced that, right? You have to preface it with, as much as we can hope for, but
right.
Great. And so you would obviously know with, kids from 9 to 2. So, and Miriam, let's get started. We're going to talk about the top 5 tips when you're baking with kids, and I'm sure there's probably like 25 tips, but, I want to just start with that. So give us your first top tip for baking with kids.
Okay. So the big number one for me is safety. I know you think it's obvious or maybe a bit boring, but especially because Baketivity works for such young kids as preschoolers, going through the safe rules is first. So in my kitchen, and I would suggest other parents to do that as well, I show my children the utensils that may be a hazard, like knives or blenders, and I show my kids how the outlets need to be dry before plugging anything in. And then, of course, the oven, when it's hot, a parent intervention is necessary, right?
Right.
Actually, in the Baketivity booklet, where we have the instructions on how to bake the items, we show very clearly which step in the baking process needs adult intervention. So the kids know that when they bake. So that, I think, is great.
Yeah, very good. And so important because you hear, of disasters happening, and especially, with the, I think whoever designed an oven with the controls in the front must be someone who didn't have kids because, I would never buy one like that. You see them in the stores and you just think, are you kidding me? You've got to move them to the back. And I have some wall ovens, but even those, the bottom one is low. And so when I would take anything out of the oven, I would just make sure the coast was clear and just tell the kids to stand back. Teach them that. I know when I had my little ones and they would see me getting something in the oven, they would immediately sit down. Just like, okay, stop and drop. And that was good. Wonderful. Okay, so safety's number 1. What's number 2?
Number 2, I would say, let it be the child's creation. As parents, we have a natural instinct to jump in and help the child to tweak the project just a tiny bit so it looks better or more perfect. Mm-hmm. I think these tiny nuances, it can give a subtle message to the child, like you need help, you can't do things alone, even if it's not intentional on our part. So letting them do things on their own, not only with a Baketivity kit, all the time in the kitchen, gives them pride, it builds their confidence, and it empowers them.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. I did a podcast yesterday with a friend, and she talked about constantly save our kids, that we've got these children now who can't hear anything that they disagree with, or have to have safe rooms, or like the stuff that's going on, or have to have the comfort animal or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that comes from not allowing them to succeed on their own, and also continuously coming to the rescue and, like you said, tweaking it or making it better. Or I love art, and I would work with my my kids and my grandkids, and I'm just dying, to take that paintbrush. So I always will say to them, if anybody needs help, just ask. And so sometimes they'll ask me, and then sometimes they'll say, Grandma, can you fix this? And I can say, yeah, just add a little bit white here, and just kind of point. And then they do it, and they feel so great, And wow. The same thing with baking. We've had, I have to tell you, some major disasters, but still a learning experience, right? And
sure.
So, maybe you're not making triple the recipe, which is crazy, but it's I have 8 grandchildren, Miriam. So when everybody's amazing. Here, and then the five older kids, and it's a full house we used to laugh when we go out to eat. We immediately get hit with a gratuity, and so I would get, it's like right? You've got more than 5 going out to dinner. If there's like 6 or more, they always want to hit you with this extra, and so it's a lot sometimes to handle. But I love that advice. Let it be the child's creation. All right, number 3.
Okay, also important is to be prepared for the mess. I know as much as we at Baketivity designed the kit so that it should keep the messes minimal, when little people work in the kitchen, some spills or mishaps are inevitable. So if you're mentally prepared that there will be a mess, you'll be okay with it, and that'll keep the atmosphere more positive and fun.
I like that. Yep. Expect a mess because it's going to happen, right? Just have, your little wipes or whatever that is nearby. Very good. Okay, and your 4th tip?
I find that in the kitchen, especially when baking, especially with the Baketivity box, since it's so easy and designed for children, that the environment is just so much fun and it's comfortable and loving. I think the setting is a conducive setting for sharing and listening and just discussing important topics. It's important to utilize the moment to listen to what's on your child's mind, discuss a topic that is of importance to you. These are all memorable moments that you spend in the kitchen. It's a good idea to use the opportunity to teach them lessons and also to help them grow far beyond the kitchen, right?
Right. I think that's great advice, and it's really true. Like sometimes little ones just want to talk. I have a couple of grandchildren like that, and they're always around my husband. And I said to him, are you feeding them chocolate on the side? Because why are they flock to you? And he says, because I listen. Like one of my granddaughters will be telling him the plot of a book she's reading, and even the little 3-year-old is a chatterbox, and like he'll start with me, but I'm busy, trying to get dinner on, and I say, hold on, Chris, and let Grandma go grab this, and like by the time I turn around, he's gone because Grandma's just not sitting there listening. And so I think especially Christopher, he would be right there, with this kind of thing, talking my ear off, I'm sure. And I wouldn't have to say, hold on, because I need to think, let me grab my teaspoon here to measure, because it's done. So I think that's wonderful. And your last tip?
Okay, so my last tip is actually very important. It's a very important skill that I like to teach my kids when baking, is that we read the recipe. We make sure that we have all the ingredients needed and all the utensils and pans, Ensure we check if we're ready to bake. I would refer to it as baking preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, planning and preparing is a building block for success. It's a skill that's needed across the board.
I agree, yeah. And it's so good because a lot of times, little kids especially, get upset when things are missing. It doesn't matter, in a household or even extended family. I had a nephew, well, actually his mom was my niece, so my second nephew, I guess.
Oh, wow.
He would come over and he would look for like the trailer for the little truck. And I looked at him and said, this is leftover from my own kids, and I would say to him, I don't even know that I had that. And he goes, oh, yes, it was here and it was in this. Like he remembered where that was. And he's now a teenager and very bright little boy. He's grown up to be a bright young man. But it's just like some kids, that's so important. They want to know what they're going to do, or are we going to be ready? And if something's not together, it's like Christopher, walk away, and you're going to lose, you're going to lose your whole class there. But so if you have that ready to go, then explain it and have them get everything. And plus, I bet you found, Miriam, that they're going to try things that they might not think they like. Because when you're cooking with them, right, that sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't like that. But when they're actually making it, they'll probably taste.
Right, true.
Yeah.
To get them to eat foods that you want them to, but they don't really like it.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. One of the sets that I am dying to try is the bagel one because, you're from New York, so I'm expecting big things from these bagels. But I was sharing that, it's difficult to find a really good bagel here. So I'm excited to try that with the grandkids and look at what else you guys have to offer. And you're consistently adding recipes, right?
Yeah. Actually, at this point, we're up to 12 recipes for children, which is quite a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. And so they can order just one set if they want, or 6 months, or a year. And obviously, the price drops the more you order, but it's really a great set. And also for grandparents to give as gifts, nieces, nephews. It's one of those things that I love to do because it's a gift that keeps on giving, and then the kids are really excited and tell you that, something came in the mail for them. And especially now with everything is digital, it's very rare to get a letter or something in the mail. So again, it's definitely a win-win. That's wonderful. So thank you so much, Miriam, for coming on and sharing your heart with my listeners, and also these great tips that are wonderful for, building up the family and really focusing on the things that are important.
Yeah, thanks to you. Thanks for having us.
I appreciate it. Well, friends, check out Baketivity.com/homeschool, and you will see information there about how to order. That's Baketivity.com/homeschool. You can find today's show notes and all of Miriam's great tips on VintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Look for episode 396, Top 5 Tips for Baking with Kids. Until next time, take care, God bless, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.